Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the official Neo Tokyo podcast, Interlinked. We are powered by Shrapnel.
Brace yourself for impact, crypto gamers. I am reporting from the sacrifice zone. STX3 just wrapped up and it was chock full of new features. One of those new features is the addition of weapon skin fragments. Scattered all over the map, in drawers, in boxes, on your dead opponents, there were weapon skin fragments that you could extract and then combine to create new weapon skins and bring those to the marketplace or strap them onto your favorite weapon and hop back into the sacrifice zone. They also added Metal, their off-chain point reward system, and some killer map updates. Can't wait to dive back into the Shadow Zone on June 24th for STX 3.1. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Playa3ull Games. They are inspired by gamers and funded by their community. They have a epic game on the Epic Games Store, a third-person shooter called Nexus. Hop on in there and check that out. They're also currently selling nodes, so if you're interested, check that out at their website, playable.games. That is a 3 instead of a B on Playable. Now strap in for the rest of this episode of Interlinked.
We are joined today by no other than Tanner, co-founder of Altura. How you doing today, Tanner?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? I'm glad to be here.
Doing great. Off video, but on audio, we've got Ben Gothard as well. How we doing, Ben?
What's up, guys? Super excited here. This is a back-to-back Altura pod, second that we've ever done. Tanner, really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, it's the second of many, many, many episodes between Interlinked and Altura. Really happy to have you here.
Yeah, same company, new face.
Hell yeah. And
That's
speaking
right.
of which, let's get this ball rolling with Tanner. Could you give a little introduction for yourself, maybe cover a bit of your Web 2 past, how you got into Web 3 and what you're doing today?
Sure. Yeah, I come from a very traditional Web 2 past. I went to university in Canada, so I'm born and raised just outside of Toronto. Did my undergrad in business and have my master's in accounting. So after that, I went and worked for Deloitte for 4 or 5 years. I got my CPA from Deloitte, both in Toronto and Vancouver, before moving out to the UK and taking over EMEA with their consulting group, doing strategic consulting for financial institutions. And it was actually when I was in London working at Deloitte that I met Majd, my co-founder and business partner with Altura and the other stuff that we do together. And he convinced me in its infancy, not infancy stage for Altura, but still very early before kind of taking some of the big steps that we've made over the past little bit to come join him on this journey of bringing Altura to the next level and legitimizing and taking on a larger amount of staff and making sure that we're doing everything correctly. So I came on to Altura in, I believe, officially March of last year, but started working with Majd back into January of 2023. And now we're here, we are today, and working with what I believe is going to be one of the best, if not the best, infrastructures for Web3 gaming in the space. And we're growing and moving forward every single day, trying to do things a little bit different from everyone else and focusing on kind of a big thing that's come up recently is less flash and more function. We believe that in this industry that we come in now, there's a lot of flash. There's a lot of people that try to make really cool UI, then on the back end, a lot of the stuff just doesn't work. And we want to provide infrastructure for games that it works. It's functionable. It's things that they can believe in, that when they're giving things out to the people that are playing their game, they're going to be constantly be able to enjoy that experience. And that's a big part and a part of our ethos at Altura.
Oh, I love it. And I'm super excited to dive into all the different nooks and crannies of Altura. But before, I got to ask, with that accounting background, was there any temptation to come in? There was obviously, especially on the early years, there's a huge sort of open space where everyone was trying to figure out, how do you do the accounting of crypto? How do you figure out, how much you owe for taxes? I know that's still a big hurdle. So was there any sort of temptation for you to come in on the accounting side of crypto?
It was there. I know when I first even started like at Altura, I was working with a few of the different companies that were really starting to take over, like taking your on-chain data and then putting that into a format that could be used, whether it's for US GAAP or IFRS or whatever it is. And I was helping a lot of these businesses like kind of looking at and seeing what I thought a lot of people were doing wrong. I just don't think I was really thinking in that lens because it's like it's a lot to take on and there's a lot of room to make mistakes and it's even now everything is still very ambiguous. People are lobbying to the different offices for whether it's for IFRS or it's for US GAAP or whatever standard you're following for accounting to like try and get certain things moved in. But at the end of the day, even crypto as a whole in the eyes of a lot of these boards, which is super nerdy, but like it's seen mostly as like an intangible asset. Like it's not even recognized as a cash equivalent and in many cases. So it makes the like realized unrealized gain on a lot of these tokens is in on people's balance sheets a very meticulous thing to look through. And it's even I do it a lot on our side and I work very closely with our accounting team because I take on a very hybrid role within the team, whether it's like operations, also kind of like CFO and doing that stuff. So seeing everything there, making sure that everything that we present on the balance sheet is presented in a way that doesn't like mislead or put things in the wrong light because you have to be so careful.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
if you could wave a magic wand, how would you classify it? Like what would let's say Tanner becomes dictator of accounting for the world, you know, probably net positive for the world, but what would you do?
Dictator of accounting for the world when it comes to crypto assets. Guys, you got to give me more time with this stuff before we come. I can think of better dictatorial answers. Um, in a perfect world, it's hard because you have to straddle the line of like you obviously tokens aren't seen as an investment or people we don't want to see tokens as an investment. Like a utility token needs to be seen as a utility token. So it's almost like what currently classifies a crypto token within accounting doesn't exist. Like, well, how we look at it isn't properly represented in the accounting landscape. So it's almost like we need to kind of work with everyone to create a new classification of asset for crypto that doesn't fall into a box that currently exists. I think that's the biggest issue. Well, I'm proud of this answer. Right? This is coming off the top of my dome, but I feel like right now we're trying to fit crypto into a box of what currently exists in every sense, like beyond just accounting, but especially in accounting. Like they're like, hey, how does crypto exist within our current landscape? And it doesn't. It doesn't well, at least. And I think there needs to be a rejigging of how crypto is seen in the accounting space and how we look at it and classifying utility tokens as its own asset and thinking about how how we can look at gains, losses, and all of that. I'm sure obviously we need to if there's a massive gain like that needs to be thought about, but it's like in a perfect world, I would love for crypto gains to not be taxed. I'd love for crypto games to kind of exist in their own world and them to kind of be on a different scale than what we have them now. I think that would be net beneficial for almost probably 100% of people who exist within crypto. But to say that's possible is unlikely. It might be a pipe dream, but I do believe that crypto needs to be seen as its own classification of asset on the balance sheet and not wedged into a box of intangible assets or cash or investments because it is neither of those things or none of those things when you look at it from a macro perspective.
Yeah, the utility token in particular, because like now you imagine when you fill your car up with gas, you don't have to mark to market every single gallon that you use throughout your drive, which is essentially what some of the accounting is wanting you to do on the crypto side from the
Yeah.
utility. So it's an absolute mess. I would be stoked if you were accounting dictator, a new position that we have invented on the Interlinked pod. But let's dive into Altura. Let's get a good overview just in case any of the listeners didn't catch the last pod, maybe aren't familiar, just getting into the crypto gaming space, some of that new blood we're always talking about. So what's Altura? Where do you guys fit in the ecosystem?
Sure. At Altura, we essentially help game developers build, scale, and monetize their Web3 game. So we help with everything kind of along the entire developer journey, starting with APIs and SDKs. So our APIs and SDKs essentially help with how they're going to map or how they're going to put these into the gameplay and through different API endpoints. And with our APIs and SDKs, we have our REST API, which I believe is probably the easiest, has the most options for different endpoints that you can access. but we also are a Unity verified SDK. So we have our Unity verified SDK, which is on the Unity Asset Store, and we have like the Unity verified badge. And then our REST API and our other SDKs, our Java SDK, et cetera, can be used kind of intermingled and throughout with different gaming resources that people choose to use. And then we go into like the minting side of things, like the Altura minting platform is extremely unique because we offer certain benefits for games to be able to mint NFTs that are both smart NFTs. So a smart NFT is like an upgradable or a downgradable NFT. So let's say you have a sword in a game, and that sword, when you're playing that game, you expect it to change in some manner or another. So if you're fighting a villain and now that sword has cracks in it while you're playing the game, it would only make sense for that sword to now have cracks in it on the marketplace. So we house that metadata, and the marketplace image is seamlessly updated based upon what happens within that game. But then also, let's say you defeat a monster and that sword increases in its power or its rarity because you defeated said villain or monster. That would also get upgraded on the marketplace. So it glows blue in the game now, also glow blue in the marketplace. It becomes a higher value asset, and it gives benefits to people that like really enjoy playing that game and want to grow with those assets, so that they get increased benefit from holding that, playing with it, and growing that as they continue to grow and move through the game. The other cool thing about our minting platform is things like burnable and consumable NFTs. So kind of what that is, in a way to think about that, is when games bring more things on chain, like bullets or potions, when you have assets that are kind of constantly used, like those things, you want to have a way where this works into the game mechanics. So let's say you're shooting a gun and you bought 1,000 bullets, you used up all your 1,000 bullets. Those are going to be used in the game, but then they're also going to be simultaneously burned on chain. So you have to go back and buy more bullets to be able to use it in that game, or drinking a potion. That all that game mechanics will be worked in through the game, but then would also be seen on the blockchain side of things through being burned on chain and then no longer existed. And then the third part of things, or another thing that we do, is with our marketplaces. So we obviously have our Altura marketplace, and then we have our white label marketplace, which is a super cool marketplace that can be set up in under 5 minutes. You can have your own custom logo, banner, sidebar, have all of your collections on there from any of the different blockchains which we support. So we support 13 different EVM compatible blockchains. You can have collections from all 13 if you wanted to, or whatever different EVM collections that you choose, all housed in one place. And then the final thing of what we do is we have our Altura Guard 2, which is our social login, authentication service, and security. So basically, we allow gamers to come on, log in through social login, whether that's Twitter, Discord, whatever social that they choose to use, to get a wallet using open source code from different things like Zero Auth and Web3 Auth, to be able to create a wallet for them that they can use in game and not have to worry about the keys until they extract that.
Sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut you off, but I have another softball question for you. I actually think of gaming as a microcosm for real life, and things that are able to be tested in game, I think, are a perfect place to experiment and try things out. And if it doesn't work, fix it, and do kind of the maintenance cycle and perfection cycle internally through the game, and then be extrapolated into real life, right? And so the idea of like a dynamic or upgradable NFT, or a smart NFT, that is so useful in the real world. Like, imagine if your car, you could keep track of the data of your car through a smart NFT or dynamic NFT. Do you see the parallels there between gaming in the real world, and how could you kind of see that playing out long term? And were you guys thinking about that, or is that just kind of like just a happy coincidence that you could apply that to basically any piece of any physical asset in the real world too?
Yeah, no, it's definitely like a technology or something that can be easily applied beyond just gaming. I think gaming, in a sense, and I don't know how deep you guys might get into this, but it's very similar to kind of the adult industry, in that it tends to be very far above a lot of these like technological trends that people tend to pull from gaming in these different industries that do things first, because it's a simpler arena to kind of test them in, and then they can be used in these other use cases. We've completely talked about real world assets and doing things like that, but I think the biggest holdback for us is like, we want to really hone in on the niche that is gaming right now, and we're not a huge team, we're not massive, we're completely self-funded. Everything that we've done has been based off funds that we've accumulated ourselves. Like we have no outside money, so we want to make sure that we don't spread ourselves too thin. So we've really chose to focus in on what we're doing at the moment. But it's definitely been a conversation. There have been times where you've been like, well, what if we went into real world assets and did things in that journey? Is there a space for us? And there definitely is. We just have to be careful with how we choose to allocate our resources so that we don't put ourselves in a position where it's like you have our bread and butter and we just chose to throw it out because we saw something shiny.
Yeah, how do you kind of run that? Like, how do you run that opportunity cost analysis, if you will? Because I mean, the parallels are right there. Like, if you to kind of loop back in the accounting perspective, like a smart NFT could very easily track the depreciation of the vehicle over time. Like that would just be so cool. And the automotive industry is huge. But obviously, you guys have bread and butter in gaming. You're very easy to kind of add into the gaming world. So how do you maybe you could I know you touched on it, but maybe you could double click on like how you actually think through that cost benefit analysis or the opportunity cost review. Like how do you make those decisions about what to tackle next?
Yeah, okay. So I think a big piece of this comes from the willingness of the industry at the moment. So like even though the tech is there and it is very similar in gaming, it's like the tech is there and the possibility of there, it's just the willingness of people to apply it. And although there's like the cost benefit analysis, a lot of we do right now is qualitative in looking at the fact of like even though we 100% could track the depreciation of a car over time or track the price of an asset as it moves through or changes and monitor that and use NFTs to be able to do that. Is the market ready for that right now? And what would be on the qualitative side, what would be the cost for us to be able to educate the market in order to make it a net beneficial for us? And that at the moment is much too high. Just the marketing costs to be able to educate the regular consumer, because who would be the people that would take the depreciation of an asset over time and want to monitor that through an NFT? Would that be the average person who owns a car in today's society is probably somewhere between the age of 35 and 40. Are those people willing to take on this new technology right now? I don't think so. I think they're still moving into it slowly and slowly getting introduced to it, but the price and the marketing fee to be able to properly educate them on how to use this and how it makes sense for them is too big of an ask at the moment.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'd love to zoom into smart NFTs in our gaming space. When you guys announced smart NFTs, now a number of years ago, it feels like they were sort of very groundbreaking. There's a lot of excitement around them. Now, zooming in today, how many of these gaming projects are incorporating smart NFTs and like how many are still using sort of legacy? I'm going to use the opposite, so call them dumb NFTs.
The NFTs. I'd say most of the people that tend to work with us find a way to integrate smart NFTs in some way or another. It really depends on the use case of the game itself and how they want to structure their assets. Adoption rate, I'd probably say probably 20%, 20 to 30% of projects adopt smart NFTs in some way, some manner. You have like trading card games, which are probably a lot more likely to adopt the smart NFT methodology because of like being able to level up a card or do something like that. And then you'll see a lot of like first person shooter games. They're starting to think about ways that they can introduce that because if you have a gun, you need to add new things to it or upgrade that weapon. They're starting to think about how they can integrate smart NFTs to be able to do that. And it's always a big selling point for us. It's really just, I think, as games begin to evolve more, and I think we're getting to that space now where games are getting actually much more playable and better as from an overall perspective, people are going to look to how can they continue to improve, and smart NFTs are going to be the answer there for a lot of games, is how they can continue to take this asset and make sure it's not like a static asset and it's something that can be dynamic and change. And I think that's going to be important as games continue to evolve. So right now, probably 20 to 30%, but I could see that number rising as the quality of games improve over the next little bit to much higher, somewhere between 50, probably closer to 75%.
Yeah, and of the projects that are already incorporating the smart NFTs, are there any like exciting use cases that you've seen recently of how they're utilizing the smart NFTs in game?
Smart NFT. Yeah, so there is, I'm gonna be honest with you, in terms of who would be the best person to answer that question, probably not me. Um, I work with the games on a very like white glove coming in, helping finalizing partnerships and going through and making sure I can help them there. The best person to give you the answer of how games are best using Smart NFTs would be my head of sales, Alex, who isn't here at the moment. He's the one who's really going in and working through with them all of the use cases for them to be able to take the Smart NFT technology and integrate it into their games and sees because these games aren't live and playable, a lot of them. I'm not the one. I'll see the game when it's live and playable and see kind of how these assets are being put in. But since most of our games right now are still in that like moving into their beta, getting closer to their alpha phase, I haven't fully seen what a lot of these games are working on. I know they're working on them, but I personally am not as close to a lot of these situations because I have to focus on so many things at once with running the business and making sure that we're getting everywhere from both a business standpoint, token standpoint, overall growth standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Then maybe zooming out to like of a more macro perspective, now like sort of leaving the smart NFT topic exclusively, who are some of the partners that you're very excited to be working with Altura, some of the games that are being onboarded, just in a general sense.
Yeah, I'd say like some of the games I'm most bullish on. I guess we're going to use some crypto terms here, but some of the games I'm probably most bullish on at the moment. I had a chance to play Oxia Origins beta at GDC at one of the booths, and it was getting to play their game and really got to see the quality and the amount of time they put into like the graphic development and everything they're doing there, even just at the beta stage. And I'm really bullish, especially because they have their TGE, I think, coming up sometime soon with the Oxia token. I'm really excited to see how they progress away from their beta into their alpha stage and how that game grows. They're super cool and their game has a lot of, I believe, promise in the way that they're structuring it and kind of like it's like a dystopian space shooter type game, and I think it has a lot of places that they can go with it. Other games that I've seen do really well with us right now is a game called Space Misfits. It's a smaller game. They just have their single player mode at the moment, and they're working on their multiplayer mode. But they've successfully integrated a ton of different things, whether it's bridging NFTs across multiple different chains to be able to be used within the game, or it's using burnable or consumable NFTs within their single player game. And I've seen them take on a lot of this tech and bring it into the game in a way that has been super effective. So I'm just excited to see how they can continue to improve and get better. But I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to with a lot of games comes in the form of something that we've done recently in announcing our $1 million gaming grant fund. And bringing in games to be able to apply for that grant and have the community vote on it with a 1-to-1 ratio, holding Aloo versus voting power to see the type of games that we can bring into our ecosystem and the promise and the things that they're working on. Because I'm going to get to read all of these different applications and see how they plan to what they want to do with the money, what their next steps are, and how they plan to build and grow. And that's going to be probably the most exciting thing that I get to see. Just see these games as they apply and get these like this last piece of funding that's going to help them kind of get over the line to be able to get to where they need to go.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's super exciting to see. I mean, talk about like a win-win-win. Obviously, great for the platform, great for the token to have some utility there, to have the involvement of the community. Then obviously great for the games that are getting checks cut. A little bit of alpha maybe for the listeners. What are some of the things that you guys are looking for these applications? What's a game that's gonna, not specifically, but what can games do to sort of stand out?
Yeah, and I think okay, so when it comes to grant applications, I think there's been a lot of I don't want to call it failures in the past, but there's been a lot of grant programs that they kind of end up controlling where the money goes at the end of the day. But the biggest thing that we've kind of set ourselves on is we really want the community, our community, to be the people that decide which games are winning these grants. So it's like you want to impress us, obviously, like you have to get approved. But the people that you want to impress at the end of the day is the community. And who's the community? The community is going to be people that are holding aloof. So how can you make it most beneficial for them with this grant? Is it working with us in some way? Is it promising X, Y, and Z? Maybe it's something for the specific holders of the token or the people who hold our different NFT collections. How can you make your proposal most beneficial to the people that are going to be voting for you? And also you have to think about how can you entice your own community to want to join our community and grab some Alu token in some way or another so that they can make sure that they can help you. It's going to be a big marketing expense or marketing decision for a lot of games. It's like, how can we bring our community in to help us win this grant or help us do something? While also, how can we entice the currently existing community? And you have to get involved. I say the biggest thing is, and things that games have already started doing, is getting into the community, getting into the Discord, getting into the Telegram. People want to talk to you. Community members want to talk to you. They love seeing games come in and talk about Altura. And if you can do that early and start gaining their trust when your application goes up and you're on that and you're on the site for voting, people are going to be super interested in what you're doing. So you really have to take a proactive approach from all standards and remember who's the person that's making the decision, because it's not me and my team. At the end of the day, we hold whatever our X percent of the circulating token, but that's not what's being voted with. It's the 70% of the token that's currently in 74,000 different token holders' hands who are making the decisions on what happens with this grant fund. So you really got to think about who your audience is. How can you entice them through the grant? How can you start getting familiar with them? Because if you just come in, you have a great idea, but you've never spoken to the community before and they have no clue who you are, like people aren't going to vote for something that they don't trust. And trust comes in the form of coming in and speaking to people and getting them to kind of rally behind you. And I think there's going to be multiple ways for games to be able to do that.
What an interesting and fun dynamic. And just by the way, I am a bag holder very happily. Diamond hands, baby, let's go. But what a really cool dynamic and a fun way to get both community buy-in, because now we, the community, get a chance to decide the future of what happens with this capital. But then also the projects come in and they get to learn more about the community and hopefully build together and with, both parties have each other in mind. Did you guys kind of think that, like, was that the most important thing for you, was the social engineering side of it, to where it's kind of connecting the dots between projects and community, or what was kind of the main goal there?
The main goal was, yeah, really just that. Is like we felt that we needed to find a way to entice the community to be more active in what's happening with the company from day to day, beyond just price fluctuation. So I feel like everyone gets caught up in the day-to-day movements of a chart. And we wanted to find a way to get people caught up in more than just where the price is moving, but what the company is doing. And we felt like this was a great way to have people actively involved in things that go beyond just a movement up or down, green or red. This gets people involved in what we're doing, and it will get new conversations going, and it will increase the amount of output in our community, creating a more active and involved community overall.
Yeah, well, as a fellow bag holder as well, I'm certainly excited to see those start to come in and get to review and vote on those. That's a super exciting process, and not to mention we'll just fuel some further innovation in our very innovating space. Um, One of the partnerships that caught my eye that you're seeing all over the place is Superverse. So would love to get like a little bit of a feel for, how you guys are collaborating. What is Superverse kind of like bringing to the table? What sort of attracted you guys to like that partnership?
The Superverse partnership is interesting because their idea for what they want to do within kind of the Web3 gaming industry, I think, is something that's very aspirational. Like I think it's very difficult in order to become kind of like a one common use currency for a lot of these games or be something like that. And then everything else that they're doing, I'm not sure what's public and what's not. So I'm trying not to bite my own tongue and say something that's real or not real because I talk to too many people at the end of the day. But just like hearing a lot of the stuff that they're doing that's really, really cool or that they want to do, I think it's a very aspirational journey. And I think they have the social capital to be able to take that on that a lot of people don't. Like you can come in and you see tons of projects like they have a big token release and they do really well, and people who are kind of competitors to Super who came in with a huge token and now their token's down like whatever, and obviously the community came in because they thought the token was going to do really well, and then now that that's kind of goes down when that was all they had initially, it's really hard to build up that confidence again. And I think Super's done a really good job of cultivating a community who's super involved and interested in everything that they do in every single way, and I think that reflects not only in their price growth since like I think it was like October when they were like 7 cents to now where they're constantly around that like 90 cents above $1 range. And there's that big part of it. But then there's also just their interactions on Twitter, that every time they tweet, they have so many people interested in what they're putting out there. Their content's always super high quality, and working with them from a strategic standpoint obviously made sense because we want to align ourselves with people who we believe can help grow and create a more connected industry within Web3, but also we see a world where we can work with them beyond just from a marketing perspective. Like with everything that Super does, we believe that we are an infrastructure company that a lot of people should want to work with because of the quality that you get when you work with Altura, and you get products that people are going to be happy to use. And we want to work with Super from an infrastructure perspective, being that Altura is the go-to infrastructure that we think super companies should use when they're building their game if they're not building it out themselves.
I kind of want to take us into a bit of a different direction. I'm not sure, Tanner, how much we can talk about it, but I kind of want to enter the second part of the discussion here. I know you guys have some really cool new initiatives. I'm not sure how much we can talk about, but you know what I'm talking about. What can we discuss? What can we unleash upon the lovely listeners? How much can we disclose here?
Yeah, so you're talking about Jupiter, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah. It's okay. So videos for kind of as we launch Jupiter publicly are coming to their creative head at the moment and being worked on by our creative and video team. I don't know if I'm assuming you saw the launch video for the grant fund, but we tried to do we're trying to take a more cinematic approach to the way that we present ourselves publicly, and that's going to come through also with a lot of the Jupiter announcement stuff. We're taking a much higher quality approach, working with real animators and people that not just like the average person who creates videos. Like we're trying to work with very high industry level people to be able to create very high quality videos for the people that get to see them, and that's important for this Jupiter launch as well. The way that we want to run things is we really want to showcase the technology that we want to bring with Project Jupiter, and use that to entice the community and get them super interested in what's going on, bringing on games. And then when we bring Jupiter fully to the market in a completely active sense, we want to make sure that it's something of value for the average Web3 gamer, the average person who wants to game using blockchain-backed technology. We don't want to release a product that in 3 years or in 2 years or in 1 year that okay, you guys can use it then. It's going to be valuable for you then. We want to make sure that on the first day of activation that it's something that people are actively able to take advantage of and use and play games with and get to enjoy that experience with. I might have said a lot of things if you really start to dissect all the words that I've chosen to use. And Ben, I know your camera's not on, but I feel like you're smiling because you're smiling in your little photo right now. But you really have to think about the way that we launch it and making sure that it makes the most sense for the people, the end user, the people that are going to be using this new product launch for us, because we don't want to drop something that isn't going to be able to be used right now. And we got to make sure that we time everything out perfectly. And that's hard to do. It's not simple, but everything's begun underway, and we're gonna start releasing the veil of Jupiter very, very, very soon.
Now a word from our sponsors.
Introducing Creo Engine, a next-level Web3 gaming ecosystem that connects gamers and developers in a Web3 gaming hub. Hop on their Creo Play platform to check out current and upcoming titles like Evermore Nights, Slime Haven, Creonia Metaverse, and Arcade Fest. The team has earned the endorsement of the chairman of Indonesia's People Consultative Assembly and earned a 10 out of 10 from Hackin on their cross-chain bridge audit. Check all this out and more on creoengine.com.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
I absolutely am smiling, and I love it. And so I don't know how much we can talk about like what it is exactly, and who's going to benefit and all that kind of stuff. But definitely would appreciate whatever is publicly available that we can talk about.
Yeah, it's essentially just improving working on improving the gaming experience and bridging the gap between the gamer's experience in a Web 2 game versus what the current experience is in a Web 3 game for the average Web 3 gamer. Because I'd say the average Web 3 game, even if the game itself has all the necessary markers to make it a good game, it can still be clunky at times, mostly on the integration into Web3 side of things that makes it clunky. And we're looking to relieve that friction with this new product launch and create something that allows people to just strictly worry about playing a good game without constantly having the veil of, oh wait, but this is the world of crypto, always taken off of their eyes while they're playing that game and not get to just enjoy the experience that they're meant to be immersed in.
I think it's a super important point. I mean, you think about so many technologies in the traditional gaming space that have just gone into the background. I always use the analogy of like, imagine if every time you played a multiplayer game, you got a pop up when you went onto the server saying, okay, you're about to go onto Amazon's server. Now I need you to pay like a fraction of what we're paying to Amazon. Like there's so much technology that's just fallen into the background that really that's what gamers are used to and will, I think, make a huge difference in Web3.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking away the wire from the telephone and making things truly wireless. You're not tangled in by the fact that you can't go very far because you're limited by the length of that wire. We want to make it an unlimited and seamless experience for the gamer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely part of our space that could use some work on as, most of the games you're getting constantly plagued by little pop-ups for transactions and such that definitely take
Yeah,
you out of the overall experience.
exactly. And that's something that we look to remove and make more seamless.
I love it. Now, one of the areas that I'd like to explore is obviously you guys are OGs in the crypto gaming scene. You guys have been around now multiple cycles. What are some of the pros and cons of being an OG in the space when, both coming in with all the clout that you have from the last cycle, but also now competing against sort of the new shiny toys that are able to come out and be, totally new where people don't really understand them yet, which can be an advantage. So how do you guys sort of view that dynamic?
Yeah, people love a TGE. At the end of the day, everyone loves a token launch. And obviously, having had the token launched in April of 2021, it's crazy to say, but we're mature in this industry, which is like it's just such a weird concept to think a 2021 company is mature because in most senses that's still an absolute adolescent of a company. But in crypto, it's like, oh no, you're a full-grown adult. You take the road to school by yourself. Like you don't have any hand-holding left. And competing against these new shiny toys, it's constantly like people weren't around. A lot of people maybe weren't around in the beginning cycle, and they don't realize that like with especially around infrastructure and stuff, people make a lot of promises and then they have a lot of backing in a sense. And when it's paired with like a token launch, even people in our community will see like the new shiny saying, we're going to do this and this is going to happen. And then people are like, well, back to our community and be like, well, you guys, why aren't you guys doing this? And I'm like, because they're saying things to launch a token. Like this is all the purpose of the things that people are saying right now is to do well when launching a token. And it's easy to get caught up in the hype, especially when there's a more bullish market going on like there was at the beginning of 2024 and then back to when we initially launched. You hear all these things and they're really nice to hear, but it's once you've kind of been around, it's like you can say a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it's the people that have taken the time to build and work on and perfect their company and what they're releasing that are going to be the ones that actually can make a dent. And we have to do so much more to reproduce hype because we can't just go out and release another token. We can't just go out and do another TGE. We can't just do all that. We have to do it through actual innovation. And that's what makes the cycle of crypto that we're in now a lot more difficult than a newer company that's coming in because we actually have to provide value in a sense that goes beyond just releasing our token because our token's already been released for 3 years. We have to provide token or value in a sense that people can actually see it and it's tangible and it's something that people can use every day that goes just beyond the initial launch. And it can be frustrating at times because you see all the things that you've done and how hard you guys have worked and how much effort has gone into the development of your product and making it better and more usable and more efficient and more functional. But it's fun at the end of the day because you truly actually get to be creative. It's easy to launch a token. It's easy to just create the smart contract and do that nowadays. It's not like a super difficult process, but it's hard to be a mature company that needs to continuously provide value to a community in a way that isn't traditional for the average crypto company.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to be in the promises phase than the delivering phase.
Yeah, even like where we are now, a big thing is like, okay, where's your roadmap? And I'm like, dude, I have a full product suite released. And everything I'm building at this point is speculative based upon where we think the industry is going. If I provide you a roadmap, it's going to change every couple months because something new and shiny is going to come up that we are a problem that we want to solve. And it might delay our development on X, but push forward our development on Y. And we don't release a map anymore, an engineering map, because things are always changing. And we don't want to be like tied down by a promise that we made 6 months ago when the market is literally different every day. Like we're so new that things are constantly changing. And when you're first creating your project, it's easy to have an engineering roadmap or to have some kind of roadmap because okay, we're going to launch our token, then we'll create our first phase of products, then we're going to perfect those, we're going to release them to as a beta, then as an alpha, and then a full release. But we've done that. We're 3 years in. Our product suite's usable. Our tools are there. People are using them every single day. We have over 150 games signed on to use Altura's tools, over 65 games that are actively building every single day using Altura's tools. We're there and we've done that. So everything we do from this point, if we don't keep it kind of hush hush, even from an innovation standpoint, is like there are people that can just steal what we want to do because it's not just the basic, okay, we're making our product. It's like, how can we take an edge up on people? So we try to keep that internal. And I think at some points that frustrates some people because they're like, why don't you have a roadmap? And I'm like, because I can't. There's no point at us at this stage to always give an infinite level of insight into what we're doing every day because we don't know if that's going to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not like you look at something like Adobe. It's not like Adobe has like a roadmap that they're necessarily pushing
Yeah.
every single day. They have a product suite. I mean, that's one of the biggest differentiators, I think, between our space and the traditional space. If you're a publicly traded company, you're having like quarterly shareholder meetings where you're sort of updating everybody, where in Web3, you're in the Discord and people are constantly in there asking questions.
Yeah, and it's hard too because even we live in an industry that's live or die by the market on that day. And you could have a plan and a fully ready to release a product on June 1st. But if May 30th runs around, all of a sudden the market's down 30%. If you release that product on June 1st, who's going to see it? No one. Everyone's too nervous watching a chart, seeing their bags dwindle down. They're not going to notice the fact that you just released this brand new innovative product. This industry can be so like forgiving or so like beneficial, but also so unforgiving in the sense of just one market trend can completely ruin your ability to launch something to the right people.
The pendulum swings very far on both sides, and it can
Yes.
be your best friend and your worst enemy. Absolutely.
Yeah. In a bull market, you can launch shit and it will fly. But during a recourse or like a capitulation of prices, you could launch the best product in the world and no one will care.
It's a crazy dynamic. It's absolutely wonderful and sometimes horrible all at the same time. How are you guys thinking about AI? How does that impact what you're doing? Maybe not at all, but maybe significantly.
Yeah, we do think about, especially when AI had its like rise to fame, I want to say, like even just like a year and a half ago, we were wondering, okay, how can we integrate AI into like our product suite? And we couldn't think of an actual high value way to integrate AI into what we do because of the nature of what we do. Of course, we can use AI as a tool from an engineering perspective. Like our engineers use AI every day, whether it's solving problems, like when we're trying to figure out ideas for copy or whatever it is, like we'll use AI as the tool. But I've personally had to sit people down and be like, I see the tweets or I see the things that you're doing right now, and I know that you didn't generate this and this is generated from an AI because it's to me it's super obvious, and I have to be like, you can use AI for what it is for a lot of senses, and it is a very, very strong tool. But at the end of the day, no one wants to read an AI generated tweet. They want to read something that is creative and on brand. And AI doesn't always do the best job of doing that. They try and throw as many big words at things. Um, and in terms of our product suite, we couldn't think of a effective way to integrate AI into what we do every single day. And we don't want to just throw another buzzword into our company in order to make people happy, because in the long term, it's going to be like, okay, so what does your AI actually do? And we just don't have an answer to that. And I think net will be negative as we run through the course there.
Yeah, I definitely applaud the self-control because obviously me and Ben talk to a lot of different projects, and let me say that self-control is not very evident. But for the projects that's one of the pros, I think, to being an OG is that you realize that these sentiments shift and
Oh yeah.
eventually you're going to have a bunch of very squeaky wheels in Discord being like, you promised X and you promised Y. Like, what does this do? What does it actually like integrate into Altura? So I
Oh,
applaud you
it
guys on their strength.
it could get even worse because you have a lot of these people and you never know who they actually are. And you may have this master sophisticated trader who's just waiting for the right time to unleash a FUD storm, pair that with like a 100x leverage long short, and then, your token's wrecked, your community starts FUDding. Like you could have a full-blown disaster because like Squeaky McDuck on the Discord
Yeah.
is like asking a ridiculous question. Like we're in unprecedented times there too.
Yeah, if you jump on every trend in crypto, like you could have made a social fly platform a couple months ago and probably did well for a little bit, and then now that narrative's kind of disappeared in a sense for right now. You could have done an AI aspect to your company. You could have done a ton of different things over the past, even just the last year, to think about the different narratives that have come and go so quickly. We could have launched a Solana meme token back in at the beginning of the year. I'm sure that would have done pretty well on the back of like the size of our community. But at the end of the day, trends and fads come and go, and someone's going to be left pissed off, especially because none of these things tend to stick. But gaming seems to stay around.
Gaming sticks. And also a quick shout out to the audience. If any of you guys are one of these FUD formulators or create FUD storms, you are more than welcome to come onto the Interlinked podcast anonymously. I think that is a way bigger part of our space than really gets identified on how much of these there are genuine FUD storms when bad stuff happens, or even just when the Discord's in a bad mood, or like, but I would love to be able to actually
A
learn.
professional FUD creator.
Yeah, I think we have professional FUD creators who are out there either trading off their own smoke or, if we're really putting on my nefarious hat, maybe hired from other projects to go and kneecap their competitors. Like, you got to imagine this stuff is going on in the background.
That's speaking of which, okay, I'll let you guys know a fun little thing that happened. Back in like, I'm not going to talk about project names or anything, but like I was getting really annoyed back in like October of last year that I didn't think that the quality of like the what we were creating was getting the eyeballs that I thought it deserved. And we've since, I think, improved our reputation within the industry a lot over the past 8 months. I think a lot more people today know who Altura is than they did back in October of last year. And I think that's because of all the efforts that we put in and the amount of consistency that we have. But I was like, guys, what if we just create a full campaign pointing out every single problem with our competitors and why we're better than them and just going after absolutely everyone on Twitter? I got shot down. I had a whole plan to like go after so many people and talk about how inadequate some of their products were in a certain sense and explain why we were better, but I got I was just I was having one of those days. It was just a bad day. I got yelled at in the Discord, I think that day by some community members, and I was like, I'm over it. And I had came up with this whole plan to decimate some competitors and show them. And then everyone's like, yeah, but what if one day we want to work with them? And now we can't. And just because we got a few moments of glory from going after someone on Twitter, Twitter tends to like move on quickly to a new topic. Like, let's not do that. But there was a point where I wanted to make my own company-wide FUD storm on and just to like see how much shit I could cause to hit the fan. I just woke up that day and absolutely chose violence, but got pulled on the reins by my team to relax and to not kick up too much shit.
Okay, well, if we want to take maybe a less potentially detrimental pathway, maybe we can get all the people on a round table here and we can debate how to approach separate pieces or separate features or functions, and then just let it be a meritocratic discussion where the best rises through ongoing debate. I mean, that could be a way to kind of, still bring together the right people to talk about the right things and hopefully get to the right conclusion.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point all of the biggest infrastructure companies in the space, there's so many, there's a growing number of Web3 infrastructure people that are coming in, and I think the few are gonna last and a lot of them are gonna fizzle out. But it's crazy because I mean, in the next, I don't know when this announcement's going to be, and I'll tell you, I'll talk to you about it after, Ben, in detail. But we have a pretty big announcement that's going to be brought out probably, if not this month, maybe next month, maybe the month I don't want to give a date. It could be in 3 months, but with someone that people might see as a pretty diabolical competitor to us that we're going to be working with, and it's super exciting for us because it's we get to showcase some of our best technology in a way that also gets to showcase some of their best technology, and I think it's a net positive for everyone. But it's going to be something I think people will be surprised about because I don't think people expect competitors to want to work together all the time, and but we like to see ourselves as being able to offer something of value to almost everyone. And we're trying to do that more and more with some of the partnerships that we're cooking up.
Sounds like an Altura round three where we launch that and continue the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. We could do that.
So as we wrap up part two here, and by the way, super appreciate you hopping on. I kind of want to scope out. Today, as we're filming this, it is Friday, June 7th. So it should come
Yes.
out in a couple of days here. We had a pretty big red day, and this is amidst the Bitcoin ETFs, massive inflows. Ethereum ETFs got approved. We have the weird political stuff going on. Just it, I mean, you couldn't have asked me to predict this stuff. If you would have told me all these things were happening like a year ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just if sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. Um, However, the builders are still building. And I feel like a lot of people kind of get distracted by that, and everybody, like you're saying, like they just get sucked into the drama of the chart on a minute by minute, point 0.5 second by point 0.5 second basis. So what is your kind of perspective on like where are we in the cycle? What's gonna, where you kind of see us going from here? And I'm not as concerned about price, although if you want to, talk about price, it's great, but more along the builder side of like, how are we actually doing on the goal of onboarding the masses into Web3 and the state of Web3 gaming? And there's a bunch of questions in one, but I know you'll do justice to it.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, first, I see it kind of as a whole picture. So I see the real movement of mass adoption into Web3 gaming specifically is something that's going to happen kind of slightly after the next cycle within crypto as a whole. So if I were to give my hot take on it, I see us running through this next kind of massive bull cycle and however long that takes starting up. And I think when the first crypto cycle happened, it was kind of the people that knew about crypto that were aware that this thing is going on, and all of a sudden Bitcoin's hitting 60, 70,000 or whatever, 69,000, I think was the top last cycle. And everyone's wondering, oh, what is this now? But now in 2024, a lot more people know what crypto is than the people that knew what crypto was in 2021. And with that, in the next kind of run within the cycle, you're going to see a lot more people become interested in what is cryptocurrency, what is Web3, how are people integrating Web3 into things that I'm using every single day? How can I get involved in this? And even from you're seeing it from a job perspective, I think more and more people within industries are moving into Web3 in different manners. People like myself, people like I believe Ben, you came from a classic Web2 background as well, moving into this kind of Web3 world, and I believe everything's kind of shuffling towards that direction. So I think we're going to see a massive bull cycle come over the next year, 2 years, probably yearish. And that's going to invite a lot of people to be very interested and pique their interest into how are people integrating Web3 into more than just a money-making machine or something that is cryptocurrency. And that will allow people to bring on mass adoption. I don't believe we have that right now. I think it's something we talk about internally a lot, but I think a lot of platforms that say that we have 1 million users who are ready to play your game is just trash. Like I don't believe anyone has 1 million users that are ready to play a Web3 game right now. I believe a lot of that is social farmed. I believe a lot of that is based upon people coming in for token airdrops and things like that, people that are moving money into an ecosystem just to take it out. And I don't think that that's going to be the people that help us create a sustainable industry that goes beyond just what we're building from like a token perspective. I believe that as we continue to move forward and get those next level of the common person interested in what's happening in the Web3 space is when we're going to allow for that. And that's going to happen after this cycle or in the midst of this cycle. And that will allow people to actually want to see what's going on. And with that, and with this cycle improving and more money flowing into a lot of these companies that are building like ourselves, we'll be able to take more chances, take more risks, and really start to innovate in a way that goes beyond what we were able to do over the last 3 years in the barrel. We've innovated and done so much since 2022 when kind of we started sliding downwards in the sense of how much we've been able to build. Imagine how much we can expedite when we have a lot more capital to play with in order of hiring the best people and bringing on the best engineers and the best people from our sales team or our marketing team in order to ensure that we're doing things the right way. I think that's going to happen closely after the introduction of this next bull cycle, and we're going to be able to actually grow and bring on real users and not just the social farming average person who's coming in to get a payday, but people who are actually interested in these games, because you actually have games that are building to the point of being something that people want to play and not just something that people want to make money from. And all of this is kind of starting to cycle up. And I think over the next 3 to 5 years is when you're going to really see Web3 gaming move away from the title of Web3 gaming and just be kind of encompassed or brought into the world of gaming as a whole. And this tool that we have in our back pocket that is infinitely better than what is currently available on the market in terms of what people can do in a Web2 space with their in-game assets is going to be something that people are realizing the benefit of, and it's going to be put into the kind of as a background tool in the toolkit of all of these game developers. And it's going to start with a small game getting super, super popular, and that's going to trigger everyone who's been building in silence, because I can tell you without a sliver of a doubt that the Activisions, the Rockstar Games, all of these people, they're not stupid. They know that this is coming, but they're building in the background because they don't want to be the first person that comes out and then accidentally fails. They want to see someone be really successful so they can be like, but wait, we've been doing it too. Welcome to Grand Theft Auto with complete integration of cryptocurrency. And then it's going to go out and it's going to be there because they've had their use case proven and they're ready to launch it to the world. And that's going to be what triggers all of this. And then before you know it, we're going to live in a world where there's going to be a very thin line between what is done on the blockchain and what is done off chain. And people aren't going to know if something is on chain until they are reaping the benefit of it. And that's going to be what allows us to succeed as an industry.
Well, I absolutely love it. Now, I like the idea of the like this cycle being a primer that then gets captured by these companies and turned into dev dollars that really creates sort of this foundation that could launch onto that cycle. Your beliefs tend to line up very closely with mine as far as looking out on the next 3 to 5 years, especially as you're starting to see we're seeing a lot of the fruits even from the first cycle just starting to bloom. I mean, we got that big Illuvium trailer that just
Yeah, like
dropped
Alluvium
today.
is crazy. Like that game. When did Alluvium first get launched?
I want to say 2021. It was probably not later than 2022, right?
Yeah, and their initial timeline was like 6 months. That 6 months became 3.5 years. Like this shit isn't easy. It's not easy to just create a game that's fun to play and integrates this stuff. Like it's not a simple process. And I think Alluvium is the definition of showing that we grossly underestimate the time it takes to innovate, even with things like fucking self-driving cars. Like people fully expected by 2024 that you weren't driving any car, that the car was driving you. And we're probably still 10 to 15 years away from a fully autonomous vehicle driving. And it's people always, no matter what tech, no matter what innovation, will underestimate how long it takes for something to gain mainstream adoption, but then will highly underestimate once that happens, the innovation to happen after that point. So once things start to kick off and everyone starts using it or playing it, that's when the world starts to explode. And it's a very, very long tail. And all of a sudden, it's exploding growth after that point of inflection.
No, absolutely. Ben, saw you unmuted. You want to hop in? You got any closing thoughts before we wrap?
Well, first of all, my dreams of full self-driving, I guess, must wait. I really, really want that to be the case because I cannot stand driving, but I love to go everywhere. So it is the solution. There is no other path, and we need it immediately. So please, Elon, get this to us now. The people want it. The people want it. But but just kind of going off of meme like lords of commerce and business. Um, one of the ones I'd love to kind of get your take on is working with Becker because I feel like the Neo Tokyo community obviously would love to hear about this, but he's been super bullish on you guys for an ultra long period of time. I wonder if you can maybe comment on like what does that look like? How has that kind of played in at all to what you guys have been building? And then part two of that question is just thinking about sort of his sentiments that he's published on Twitter of like, this is the bull run of bull runs, and you have to ride this up and cash out and get out and run away like a thief in the night. But I'm also sitting here thinking if this is the bull run of bull runs, this puts us into the stratosphere and you might not be able to get that genie back in the bottle. And you have the chance now to bet on incredible teams and incredible people like yourself and your team at an early stage. So how do you kind of reconcile those things? Obviously, it might be a bit difficult talking about you guys, but maybe you can just kind of extrapolate that out and talk in the abstract, just about that kind of concept and idea.
Yeah, I think I like to, and then when I tell people about what I do, because obviously, like I said, I come from like a very Web 2 based world. Like I have uh my education in accounting, like all of my friends are private equity, marketing, they do traditional Web 2 type jobs. So when I'm like explaining what it's like in my day to day, I kind of tell them it's like I feel like I'm living in 2000 and this is the dot-com bubble for Web 3. And every single day or every as we continue to grow, there's like I see a massive growth opportunity for our industry that I don't think is going to exist in a year or 2 years from now. Like you're not going to have the opportunities that are placed in front of you now are not going to be anywhere like no one's ever going to come close to what opportunities you have now because you're at kind of the tipping point of an industry where there's so much money coming behind it. There's so much interest in it from like a relatively small niche group of people, but it's very powerful and the tech is there and the belief and the drive behind what people are building is definitely there. So what's happening now is you're early. You're early in an industry that's ready to kind of take over. And we get to see things on a level that I don't think our parents really got to see. Um, and it's been a while since this level of potential and possibility has been there. And when this cycle happens and people did choose to bet on the right teams and they grow, I don't know if an opportunity to get in at this level is ever going to exist again. So I do think now is the time because the market's ready to explode. And once it happens, that rocket's not going to slow down. There's not going to be an easy entrance point again. There's not going to be a point where everything is moving downwards because people still are unsure because the point's going to be proven. And once you prove that point, I don't think there's any turning back.
Hell yeah. I think that's a great sentiment to wrap on. I'm super excited about the future. It seems like it's getting closer via every announcement, every new game, every new studio that's coming into our space. So super excited about that. Tanner, any closing thoughts before we wrap?
Uh, Make sure you follow us on Twitter and join our communities at Altura NFT on Twitter. Our Discord communities, you can find us. The link tree will be in our Twitter for you to access all of those, whether it's on Discord or Telegram. And just stay tuned for all the stuff that we're going to be announcing over the next little bit. I truthfully believe that Altura will become synonymous with Web3 gaming in several different ways, and that although we're small when you might look at the people that you think about initially when you look at infrastructure for Web3 gaming, I can promise you that no team works as hard or gets as much done as we do. And I definitely think if you were to choose a horse and you were at the Kentucky Derby and you were looking for that underdog who has the chance to win it all, Altura is a great place to start. And you should definitely pay attention to the things that we're doing. And I promise you it's going to be a wild ride as we move through the next little bit.
Well, as a completely biased and very happily so bag holder, I do just kind of want to say, like, you are one of the most awesome people in Web3 that I've met, and it's truly an honor to be a part of the community and to get to interact with you and create content with you, and do all the fun things that we get to do together. So, really, just appreciate you and everything that you're bringing in the space, and you definitely have my vote for accounting dictator of Web3.
Thank you.
Moving forward. So just want to vouch for you there. Sure. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hell yeah. And that has been another episode of Neo Tokyo's official podcast, Interlinked. Tanner, thanks so much for joining us. It was absolutely awesome having Altura back on, getting to get updated on all the stuff that you guys are working on. Ben, absolutely wonderful to host with you. And to the audience, we will be back next week with another episode of Interlinked. Take care, everybody.